There is a moment in every person's life when the illusion finally cracks. Usually, it does not happen dramatically. It happens quietly. You wake up one morning and realize the life you built no longer feels like yours. The relationships feel performative. Your ambitions feel strangely empty. The version of yourself you worked so hard to become suddenly feels like a costume you forgot to take off. And underneath all of it sits a terrifying question. What if I've spent years running from truths I was supposed to face? This was the core of Carl Jung's work. Not happiness, not positivity, not success, truth. Jung believed most human suffering comes from psychological resistance, the refusal to confront reality within ourselves. The longer we avoid certain truths, the more life begins to feel heavy, chaotic, and emotionally exhausting. But once you accept them, something strange happens. Life does not necessarily become easier externally, but internally, the friction disappears, and that changes everything. Here are the 5 brutal truths Jung believed almost everyone must eventually face. 1. The life you want will cost you the life you pretend to enjoy. Most people never become who they truly are because they are too attached to the identity that keeps them socially accepted. This is the first tragedy. Jung called this false identity the persona, the mask designed to earn approval, avoid rejection, and survive socially. At first, the mask protects you, then it imprisons you. You begin choosing careers you secretly hate because they sound impressive. You stay in relationships that drain your soul because loneliness feels more dangerous. You keep performing versions of yourself that receive validation while your real self slowly starves underneath. The terrifying part? After enough years, you no longer know where the mask ends and you begin. Many people think burnout comes from overwork. Jung would argue it often comes from self-betrayal. Your nervous system can endure stress far longer than it can endure living a false life. That is why some people feel exhausted even when they are successful. Their soul knows they abandoned themselves long ago, and deep down they can feel it. 2. The traits you hate in others usually reveal the parts of yourself you buried. This is one of Jung's most uncomfortable ideas. The people who trigger you emotionally are often mirrors. Not always, but far more often than people realize. Jung called this the shadow, the rejected hidden parts of the personality pushed into the unconscious mind. The problem is that buried traits do not disappear. They return indirectly, as jealousy, as rage, as obsessive judgment, as unexplained emotional reactions. The person who constantly attacks arrogant people may secretly crave power. The person obsessed with calling others selfish may secretly resent never prioritizing themselves. The person disgusted by emotionally expressive people may secretly envy their freedom. Most people spend years trying to destroy externally what they are unwilling to confront internally. This creates enormous psychological tension, because the more unconscious you become of your shadow, the more it controls your life from behind the scenes. That is why Jung famously warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that again. Most people do not experience fate. They experience unexamined patterns. 3. Your mind will create anxiety rather than allow you to feel uncertainty. People often believe anxiety comes from having too many problems, but Jung understood something darker. The human mind fears uncertainty more than suffering itself. So when life becomes unclear, the brain begins manufacturing control through overthinking. Predict disasters. Analyze tiny details endlessly. Imagine futures that never happen. Not because thinking solves uncertainty, but because thinking creates the illusion of control. This is why highly intelligent people are often trapped in chronic anxiety. Their minds become survival machines, always scanning, always preparing, always anticipating danger. But life cannot be controlled into safety. And eventually, the nervous system collapses under the weight of constant psychological vigilance. Many people do not need more answers. They need greater tolerance for uncertainty. Because peace is not found in controlling life. It is found in surviving the fact that you cannot. 4. The longer you avoid pain, the more powerful it becomes. Modern culture teaches people to escape discomfort immediately. Distract yourself, numb yourself, optimize yourself, stay busy, stay entertained, keep scrolling. But Jung believed avoidance feeds suffering. Whatever remains unconscious gains power. Ignored grief becomes depression. Ignored anger becomes self-destruction. Ignored fear becomes anxiety. Ignored loneliness becomes emotional dependency. Pain delayed does not disappear. It accumulates, and eventually, life forces confrontation, usually through breakdowns people never saw coming. A divorce, a panic attack, a burnout collapse, an emotional numbness so severe that even success stops feeling real. This is why some people suddenly fall apart in their 40s or 50s. They are not breaking because life became harder. They are breaking because decades of avoided emotion finally surfaced all at once. The truth is brutal. The pain you refuse to face doesn't leave. It waits. 5. Becoming yourself will alienate you from many people. This may be the hardest truth of all. Real psychological growth changes your relationships. The moment you stop performing, some people become uncomfortable. The moment you establish boundaries, some people call you selfish. The moment you stop seeking approval, some people lose interest entirely. Why? Because many relationships are unconsciously built on roles, not authenticity. When you change psychologically, the relationship dynamic changes too. And not everyone benefits from your evolution. This is why growth often feels lonely before it feels liberating. You begin outgrowing environments that once defined you. Conversations become emptier. Old social patterns stop working. You start craving depth in a world addicted to distraction. At first, this feels terrifying. But Jung believed individuation, the process of becoming your true self, always requires separation from collective expectations. You cannot become yourself while remaining psychologically dependent on external validation. At some point you must choose belonging or truth. Very few people choose truth. That is why truly self-aware people are rare. The brutal irony Jung understood better than most. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. But avoidance is the discomfort, the overthinking, the emotional suppression, the people-pleasing, the constant self-abandonment. That is the real prison. Jung understood something modern culture still struggles to accept. A meaningful life is not built by avoiding darkness. It is built by confronting it consciously. The people who appear calm, grounded, and emotionally resilient are not people who escaped suffering. They are people who stopped running from themselves. And once you understand that, life changes, not because reality becomes softer, but because resistance finally ends.